Yes, welcome everybody to this information session about the Young Scientist Summer Program. My name is Brian Fath, and I'm the scientific coordinator of the program and also a former participant in YSSP a couple of years ago. And I am, in addition to being a research scientist at IIASA, I'm also a professor at Towson University, and I'm actually in Baltimore, Maryland right now, getting ready to teach my classes to my students in a little bit. So, having said that, so I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of what the YSSP is and what you can expect. And then we have two presentations from recent participants in the YSSP. Gemma Gerber, who was in YSSP a couple years ago, 2022, and then Taha, who was in YSSP just this past summer, and they'll talk about their research and their experience that they had to give you a sense of what you might be able to expect. And then Kirsten will go a little bit through the application process, which I'm sure you've all found already. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. So, jumping right in, so the Young Scientist Summer Program runs for the entire summer, beginning in June, ending at the end of August. So it's really designed to be a 3-month on-site program. And then really the 4th month in September, you have time to be finishing up your report that we are expecting everybody to deliver. You'll be working directly with one of the IIASA scientists, or oftentimes even multiple of the IIASA scientists. So you'll have an assigned mentor or co-mentors, and the target audience are people that are in PhD students who are kind of more in the closer to the end than closer to the beginning stage. And really the goal is to have enough research completed to publish a paper by the end of, I mean, not publish it by the end of the summer, but to have the research done that could be a chapter in your dissertation and then lead to a research article. So funding is available if you're applying for one of IIASA's national member organizations, and we also accept students from all over the world, even if they're not IIASA members. There's other avenues, or maybe your home institution or advisor has money as well too. So the deadline for this coming year is January 13th. So you still have some time to complete your application. And it's actually been running more than I have the 40 plus. 1977 is when this program started. So we're even past 45 at this point. So the thing about IIASA to keep in mind is the kind of research that we do. We like to think of it as being universal and global. So it's universal in that we are dealing with problems that the entire world is facing, like water supply and food and energy, or they're global issues where really they touch upon all people, like oceans or global climate change. I guess we don't do that much with oceans, but water definitely. And in that sense, we think of our research as being international, interdisciplinary, and interdependent. We are currently organized around 6 main research groups. The 4 largest ones that the most of the institute is working under are advancing systems analysis, biodiversity and natural resources, energy, climate and environment, and population and just societies. And each of those have different working groups under them. As you can see there, I won't go through all the names, but you can find that on the website. We also have a program, Economic Frontiers, which also hosts YSSPers every summer on particular economics issues. And then we have another one, which is Strategic Initiatives, and that one is designed to be kind of a cross-cutting, more short-term project focused. And so we do have students that are working in there, but they are usually housed in one of the other programs, but then working with scientists that are also cross-cutting into strategic initiatives. But you would actually apply into one of the other programs. Yeah, so during the YSSP, you are getting experience and exposure on these different research topics, trying to develop and apply system science to support transformations to sustainability. One of the things to keep in mind during the program is that there's it's really independent mentored research. There are not courses, there's not classes, there's not exams. It's not a summer school in that sense. It's really designed to be a chance for you to work on research with your mentor, but also to have a lot of networking going on as well too. So for example, some of the IIASA events that we have include presentations throughout the summer, both particularly at the beginning and the end. There are some workshops that are running throughout the summer. Many seminars are always taking place at the Institute that you're welcome to join. We have an IIASA showcase, which gives you a sense of all the research that's going on at the Institute, different games and science art interfaces and so on. So there's a lot of activity going on all summer long, multiple things per week, in fact, that you have the opportunity to join in on. And then as far as the networking and professional development, we have a lot of opportunities for you to get to know each other and to get to know Vienna. Things like an Austrian Hoderger is an Austrian wine bar, but it's just a nice social setting, and tours of Vienna and Alpine trips, meeting the director, tour of the Institute, lots of sports opportunities all summer long as well too, and other events, right? So there's definitely a very strong social program that runs parallel to the very strong science program. So so that's kind of the brief overview and introduction to what you can expect in the YSSP. And I think that what I'll do now is to turn it over to Gemma to give the first-hand account of I'll stop sharing of her comments about YSSP. So Gemma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
The slide presentation, not anything else, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Gemma. I was a YSSP participant in 2022, and I'm actually back at IIASA now as a research scholar. And today I just want to share with you a little bit about my experience at YSSP. It was actually quite profound for me. So to wrap it up in a few slides is very difficult, but my email's there in case you have any questions whatsoever. So this is just a little overview of what I'm going to just touch on today, how I got to YSSP, some things to think about during your application, what you can expect from a project and from your mentors, a little bit about my experience and how that sort of evolved into my current role here now. So before I joined YSSP, I'm from South Africa. So I did my undergraduate, master's, and PhD in South Africa at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And before this point in time, I'd never gone to Europe, let alone experienced a summer doing research in Austria, which was amazing. So during my PhD, I was actually doing ecosystem networks and network analysis. And this is how I landed up in the Advancing Systems Analysis program within YSSP. I loved YSSP so much. I went home, finished my PhD, and have now returned to IIASA as part of the Biodiversity, Ecology, and Conservation group, doing other work that's not really associated with my PhD at all. So before you submit your application, I would just like to give some pointers on things I did that I feel was beneficial for me. And that, so as part of your application, you'll need to prepare a sort of research proposal. And the best way to do this is to align with some aspect of your PhD research, but also keep in mind if it aligns with current IIASA research themes or the capacity available at the Institute. And something very important, have you reached out to potential mentors? So these are the people who you envision would be able to assist you in conducting your research, not in the best way, but maybe they have the best insight for your work. There is a link to the different programs and the different staff available, but I'm sure that's shared with you somewhere else. And so other important points, so when you're putting in your application, these some things to think in mind that during the summer, the program is quite jam-packed. So you don't really have time to sort of now develop new methodologies. It's more about you're going to come prepared with your models, come prepared with your results, and optimize your time with your mentors' inputs. They will be able to help you much more with that rather than trying to now develop something brand new. So as an example, I'm going to just touch on what my PhD research was about and what aspect I took out of that to bring to YSSP. So my PhD research was based in South Africa. It was all about estuarine ecosystem networks and applying something called ecological network analysis on that to get an idea of the overall system properties. And the PhD was divided into three main parts: method development, actually looking at the ecosystem function, and then this uncertainty analysis. And that's what I decided to bring to YSSP as part of my project, because I felt that there was a lot of capacity at IIASA to assist with this and to grow that research aspect. And what I mean by uncertainty analysis, I'm not going through this very much. When we build a network, an ecosystem network, we take measurements from the field and we put them into a food web model. And then we have to solve for each of these flows within the food web model. There's two main ways you can do this. You can solve one network where there's one solved value per flow, or you can solve multiple. So you end up with these 10,000 different versions of what the system can look like. And that's what we mean by uncertainty. And that's what we looked at in my project. So my mentors at IIASA were Elena Romanskaya and Brian. That's how I met Brian, and my supervisor back in South Africa. And we had a look at this. Is it useful to look at this sort of one network solution that doesn't include any uncertainty? Or if we include all of this uncertainty, is it useful? And if so, how can we communicate that to ecosystem management, for example? And this type of work is not just about ecological networks. It's actually applicable to any sort of network that you do. So economic networks, social networks, and coupled networks like socioeconomic, socio-ecological. Anyway, so that was just all about the project and the experience with my mentors to develop this report. It actually formed a chapter within my PhD and is still in progress for an actual publication. But besides the work, and there is so much other experiences around YSSP that is not just about the project. An example here is this cultural experience. So you get to experience Austria and Vienna. We went on some hikes in the Alps. We experienced a bunch of different cultural activities that Brian has described. So lots of art, lots of wine, lots of food, and the beautiful architecture within Vienna and the different tours. And the social aspect was quite important. So it was not just bonding with your fellow YSSP participants, but also forming these research connections and networks that you wouldn't get anywhere else. Because IIASA is such an international organization, you are going to meet so many people from so many backgrounds with so many different expertise. And all that does is help you build your career as a scientist and make these different connections. So because of my, I had a really good time, and I felt that IIASA, the fact that this place exists and these connections and the impact that IIASA has with not just with science, but actually developing things into to inform policy, for example, I decided that this was a sort of place I would like to work at. So after I finished my PhD, I waited for an opportunity to apply for a job, and I did within the Biodiversity, Ecology, and Conservation Research Group, where now I'm not working on networks, but I'm working on a different project called IIASA, which is assessing climate change risk in the EU, where I'm working on primarily wildfires and biodiversity, ecosystem services, and ecosystem accounting. And just as a, maybe just a side note here, so within BEC, which is the group I'm in, we do encourage YSSP participants to join us. So if you'd like any sort of general information, here's the link. The general contacts for Dr. Piero Visconti and Dr. Martin Jung are here. And we also have a brand new project, which might be very interesting. And it's one of the upcoming focuses of research, is something called One Health, which is this intersection of environmental health, human health, and animal health. And we have a member, Dr. Elisa Stefanik here. She is leading the Bloom project. So if you're interested in something like that, please feel free to contact her. So thank you very much. If you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please feel free. There's my email. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Gemma. Wonderful. Yeah, so really nice overview. Yeah, it also reminded me that I didn't say at the beginning, but YSSP is for about 50 people are selected every summer, and as Gemma mentioned, very international. We usually have like 20 to 25 different nationalities represented out of 50 people. So it's really almost one out of every other person is representing another place. So really nice chance to build out a global network. So yeah, so I see Taha has the slides up. Perfect. So let's go ahead and hear from Taha, who was in YSSP this past summer. We saw it, now we see, there we go. Go ahead, Taha.
Yes, can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, works well.
Okay, and this is in slideshow, correct?
Yes, yep, looks good.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Taha Lokmani, and I will be also sharing my experience of the Young Scientist Summer Program. I was the most recent batch, so the 2024, and my project was called the Coupled Citizen Science and Nature-Based Solutions Approach. I'm happy that Gemma spoke before me because I might be covering a little bit of different aspects. I'm trying to tell you how YSSP could fall into the bigger narrative of your lives, possibly as a tipping point for mine. So I was really lucky to be guided by 4 mentors from 2 research groups. I had Dr. Willards and Dr. Friedman from the water security group, as well as Gerrit Hage and Dilek from the novel data ecosystems group. But to get to the YSSP, I first have to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I was born in Esfahan in Iran. It's at the central plateau of Iran, 31 years old. I have a background in civil engineering and years of working as a civil engineer in and around Esfahan. I saw how the river, the life-giving river, the Zayanda River, was dying. And this, I could see how it's spilling over into the society, into the economy, into the health, into culture. And at the time, we started to see the symptoms of groundwater overexploitation in the form of subsidence. And this was appearing in all of the historical structures and the city, the magnificent city of Isfahan. So that led me to pursue a hydroscience and engineering master's degree in Germany at the Technical University of Dresden. And this whole situation with Isfahan gave me an inspiration to do a master thesis on governance. So we looked at the effect of policy incoherence, how its accumulation leads into the emergence of subsidence phenomena. The results of this is in a paper that you can read about. But so coming from the background of engineering and then going a little bit into natural sciences and then doing my master thesis in social sciences, let's say public policy, I saw how interdisciplinary people could bring a different value to how we think. And that led me to pursue a PhD in public policy. So I'm doing a doctorate in philosophy. It's on governance for sustainable and resilient agri-food systems. And I specifically focus on the participation variable. Why the participation variable? Because I think it's one of the most influential governance variables. It means how people need to be included in the decisions that directly or indirectly affect their lives. And no system, no governance will remain sustainable or resilient without the active inclusion of the diverse stakeholders taking part in it. Why the food systems? Because the food systems is where all of the resource nexus comes together. It goes beyond. It comes, systems colliding around food. We all gather around food, culture, security. So a transformation there could have spillovers into the surrounding systems. This brings me to the theory of my research. I take inspiration from the attitude, behavior, and context triangle. It says that if you are able to align the attitudes of the individuals with the context that they are embedded in, then you could expect a visible change of behavior. Here in the red line in the middle is the visibility line. So as I said, I work on participation. So I wanted to create a visible change in how people participate in decision making. I needed to activate this triangle, therefore I needed to find elements for it. As for the attitude element, I work with citizen science. It's scientific, it's where citizens, normal citizens engage in the scientific or research process. This could range from data collection to managing, designing, evaluating projects. If it is related to ecological monitoring or sustainability, then it can create a sustainable attitude. On the other hand, we have nature-based solutions. They take inspiration from the evolutionary knowledge invested in nature and tackle societal problems. So by design, they are sustainable. The idea was to see if the close coupling of the two in a decentralized and small-scale way, could it transform participation? We justified this through a systematic literature review, which you can scan and read. So to the YSSP. My work has two different elements, a co-research part and a co-development part. With regards to the co-research part, here I've marked in blue the parts that were associated with the YSSP, meaning that they had started before and were continued during the YSSP, or they started during the YSSP and finished, or they started and are still continuing. It consisted of a methodology development that consisted of sequential focus groups, where the output of one focus group would be the input of the next one, and facilitated interviews which were implemented between the designers of our project and the experts in that field. Then this was complemented by analyzing the implementation drivers and barriers in IIASA studies, which I will tell you about a little bit later on. The activities there included the social network analysis, semi-structured interviews with the local stakeholders, and a participatory fuzzy cognitive mapping of the relationships between these drivers and barriers under different contexts. And the third part of my activity was to leverage the potential existing at IIASA with regard to modeling to see if such an approach is upscaled under different scenarios, what could be its impact or effect on the entire system. The co-development side, so my project, the co part starts really from the design. So we co-design, we co-implement, we co-monitor, and co-evaluate. Because, as I said, if by design people are included in the decisions, they take ownership of it, they accept its outcomes. So as a result, the results of evaluating one project, co-evaluating one project feeds into the design of the next. I work with case studies in right now with 3 countries, Brazil, Nigeria, and Iran. The output of agri-food systems is water, sanitation, and hygiene. And you see that within these 3 countries, 2 of them are having very bad conditions, and one, simply Iran, does not provide any data in this relation. So I needed to focus on, I chose these locations for a specific reason. So to recap, the activities was to design a context-sensitive citizen science protocol, was to analyze the implementation drivers and barriers, and to model under upscaling scenarios. As a result, yeah, I'm waiting for the slides to work. As a result, so we have done a social network analysis, and we have prepared an overarching citizen science protocol that could be adapted to different contexts for our nature-based solution, which is called an evapotranspiration tank. It's a zero discharge system that takes domestically produced wastewater, treats it using natural processes and construction and demolition waste, and in return gives agri-food products. We have implemented for a case study in Brazil where we treat black water, and citizens participate in building and monitoring and evaluating, as I said. And in Iran, the wastewater, domestic wastewater, consists of also gray water. So we needed to come up with an adapted design to treat both black and gray water, and also to save water in the context of Iran where possible. As a result of this, in the last 5-6 months, we had our first bananas in Brazil. And on the right side, the project has been, actually this tank in Iran on the right side has now been filled. I don't have a recent picture of it though. And with the model, we have created a conceptual model. We're investigating, still working closely with the water group. It takes inspiration from the simple water balance equation and evapotranspiration. We're trying to integrate it with either the CWAT-M, which is a local model at IIASA, or the aquacrop model from the FAO to see what would be the effects on the bigger scale. With this, I come to my last slide, which is about the experience of the YSSP. How did I hear of this? I heard it from Professor Floor Brouwer. He's the first batch of the YSSP, and immediately he told me that, Taha, you have to go to IIASA because this would be probably the tipping point of your career. At the same time, this was emphasized more by my current supervisors, especially Professor Kaveh Madani from the United Nations University in Canada. I applied for the first time in 2023, but I got rejected. It was at the beginning of my PhD and I didn't have any relevant publications. I had not made so much connections, but that really did not stop me. I continued finding ways to work with IIASA. I found a scientific mission. That scientific mission led to the water group suggesting to me a guest contract to stay at IIASA for a year. But we reduced this to 6 months. And then at the same time, I applied for the YSSP 2024. But this time, I had already the concept, I had a publication, and I had established a connection with IIASA, especially the mentors. So this is something that I would really like to highlight. If any of you wants to take this opportunity, then connect with your mentors beforehand. So I could choose between, I had the privilege to be able to choose between the two countries where I come from or where I'm currently based at to fund me. For personal reasons, I chose Germany as the country that I'm in. One of those personal reasons is that I think Iran should invest that funding, if any available, for the students that are actually there. This opportunity also gave me a better chance to connect the United Nations University with IIASA. These are two very strategic research institutes that if you are able to spend the time in any of them, it would have an added value for your career. They are designed to translate scientific output into policies related to sustainable development goals. And I would like to really emphasize this opportunity here. I put this picture of our batch. Why? Because I think that we might have built bridges. We see that in a divided world that is continuously getting more and more divided and closer to its tipping points, we established some networks. I was sitting in a room with 2 colleagues from China and a colleague from the USA, and the room next to us, there was a colleague sitting from Russia and a colleague sitting from Israel. You rarely see such an image. You rarely see such connections. You rarely see the chance to understand the other side. So this is something that I'm optimistic that in the future will help this divided world. I want to tell you a little bit about Vienna. If you look at the history of this city, many of the biggest thinkers of our time and the previous times have spent at least a little bit of their time in Vienna. The cafes, the cafe culture there, which Brian really emphasizes as well. It's a very unique opportunity. So you feel this significant presence of big minds in this city. You see it come to life in its monuments, in its museums, in its music, in its art and culture. There's also the Luxembourg. Being at the castle, which belonged to one of the biggest emperors of Europe, working in a castle like that is a lifetime opportunity. Although we were sitting in a facility not so very, very close to the main castle, but still working in that environment is a luxury. With accommodation, I think IIASA gives the HR and the YSSP, they do provide good support for finding good accommodation in both Luxembourg and in Vienna. Although I would definitely recommend that you stay in Vienna and take the chance of spending time there. Accommodation could be a little bit more difficult and expensive, especially in a short term, but I do think it's worth it. One of the things that I would like to talk about, and I hope that YSSP makes this sort of more efficient, is the commute between Vienna and Luxembourg. Although there are regular transports going there, if you miss one or two public transport, and this happens quite often in Vienna, you would be on the way for a long time, and that's not so efficient. With food, around YASA, there are multiple food venues, including a canteen that you could use of, with regards to the activities. So plenty of beautiful activities, and I think the best one for me was the Alpine trip that we had at the beginning, which really made close connections between most of us. We had the CAP nights. It was a cafe and philosophy that we would spend in a cafe talking about a specific topic with the YSSPs. We had the weekly exchange meetings. We had the movies, which Brian coordinated, and the discussions that followed that. We had games. We had many social activities, tennis. We had football. I think we had 2 or 3 final matches happening between the YSSP and the IIASA. And with this, I would like to say that we already have a joint output. Even although me, Todd, and Brian, I think Todd and Brian were working together, but not me. But through these weekly exchanges, we found common ground, and we actually wrote a perspective paper that was recently published titled "Solutions Are Not the Answer." I would like to finish my slides with this picture of the mosque in Esfahan. It's from the Sheikh Lutfullah Mosque in Esfahan. When I look at this picture, I see sustainable development. If someone wanted to design sustainable development for me, like in a one picture, that is how I would imagine. I would like to take a moment and tell that subsidence, which is a very wicked systemic problem as a result of many problems, is destroying this cultural city and this cultural site. I think it's an existential threat to Iran, and there's already cracks and fissures appearing in all of these structures. I would like to take the time and ask the Iranian NMO, if they are here, to collaborate with YASA to really try and think of scientific ways to tackle this problem. With this, thank you very much.
Excellent, Taha. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really important for everybody here to have a chance to see some of the research that actually happened, so you get a better feel for what your summer might be like and the kind of projects that are taking place, and also to hear from the people that actually went through that experience recently and their impressions on that. So let's see if there are any questions at the moment. And while we're collecting questions, let me just add one more thing about the funding. Taha mentioned the NMOs that potentially could have supported him, and YASA is currently funded, supported by, 22 or so different countries. The list is on our website. It's somewhat fluid, so it might not be exactly 22 now, but those countries do provide some funding for the YSSP participation. But as I mentioned, there are other avenues that people can also participate in this. But if anybody has any questions.
Brian, this is Mohsen.
Yes, Mohsen, excellent. Yes, please have a word.
Yes, I would like to thank YASA for the organization of this important seminar. And I'd like to thank Taha's excellent presentation and others. I also encourage the young scientists to join YASA. And this year, Iran supports 3 YSSP to YASA. And I see lots of Iranian candidates are attending this webinar. Therefore, I wish you, as a coordinator of this excellent program, full success. And we are also in full support of the YASA. And any of you all have any questions for the Iranian applicants, please contact INSF, and they will provide you answer. And as Taha said, it's good to coordinate with the mentors in the YASA. And the 3 topics that we support mainly is on energy, climate change, urban resilience, water, and economic resiliency. These are our major topics that we would like to see more of you to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohsin, so much for the support and welcome. So, yeah, so I'm looking if there's questions. Like I said, you're welcome to raise your hand and speak up. But I see in here, is it too late to reach out to prospective mentors if we plan to apply in 2025? No, it's not. Do keep in mind, though, that IIASA is closed from like December 20th until basically right up to the deadline for 2 weeks for the holidays. But if you reach out now, you'll still have a few weeks. Can't guarantee they'll respond, but yeah, it's still definitely possible. Yeah. So other questions. Is it necessary for us to apply to the member organization for the funding, or is this done by IIASA? On your application, well, we'll see where you're coming from, and you'll mark whether you have other additional funding sources, and that during the selection, if we see you're coming from a member organization, we would match that. So you wouldn't need to reach out necessarily separately to the funding organization. Who else is asking? So somebody's saying it's quiet. They don't hear. Something's wrong with their microphone.
For the Iranian applicants, Brian, I'm sorry, they have to send their application both to INSF and both to YSSP.
Okay, so for the Iranian applicants, it is a two-stage process.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, somebody's asking about exploring a different area of research than your current PhD work. Right. So the main determinant on when you're selected is if there's a mentor who wants to work with you, who feels competent to work with you, right? So if your PhD research is not something that IIASA engages in, even if it's the most brilliant thing in the world, you likely won't get selected for IIASA because we just don't have the expertise in order to further your research. So in that sense, aligning your YSSP project with IIASA makes the most sense. If that means it's not exactly on topic of your PhD, but you're still competent in that area, I mean, that might also be the challenge. If it's something completely new for you, then you still need to demonstrate that you're going to be able to make progress and be successful in that. But it is not required that it align precisely with your PhD research, of course. So the other questions coming in, let's see. Right, so you could be, I have a mentor organized with the Shaw Group. Yeah, so if that's possible. Yeah, so the other thing, so I can't see everybody that's on. It's almost 100 people online, and I don't want to miss any of the other NMOs. If you are here and want to say something, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Verid, I believe, is also on the call. Verid, if you want to say any words from your perspective working with the NMO, you're welcome to do that.
Yes, sorry, I cannot open a camera at the moment. Yeah, no, I mean, for us, everything is administrated through the Archimedes Center. But of course, first the applications is directly to IIASA, and from those selected, we also provide funding, but this is after the selection process in IIASA.
Right. Yeah, and so we do encourage you to look at all funding opportunities that you might have. It might not only be through the NMO, but there could be other grants you might be eligible to apply towards this summer experience. So somebody's asking about how to help you in future prospects, right? So I mean, the networking opportunities are just incredible, right? You get to meet so many different people, professionals, peers. And so, it's really is a bifurcation point or tipping point. I think Taha said you're going to look at your academic careers, things before IIASA and things after IIASA, and there's no, I mean, we can't give you a job, right? I mean, that's up to you to do with it what you can, but it really will be I think a life-altering experience. At least that's the aim, and so you'll have so many more connections to be able to build upon. So hopefully that is success, leads to some further down the line success for you. So Somebody's asking about the methods and focus of work need to be quantitative, modeling related, or it can be more broadly related to socio-ecological systems. Yes, it depends really on the relevance of the mentors. IIASA is known for its large models and global models. So there's a lot of quantitative research that goes on, but there is a fair amount of qualitative research, survey work, social sciences work that takes place. Socio-ecological systems is definitely a interesting line of research that IIASA also does. So some mixed methods are welcome, and yeah, it really depends on finding the mentor who is capable of helping with that. So I think I'm caught up on the questions in the chat.
Brian, maybe I can say something. We had an Israeli participant last year that actually did something very different, very similar to the last question, and she actually emphasized, really, we had a seminar with her as well, that not to be afraid if you are not a hardcore modeling person, still to include all these qualitative and additional methods, and really to encourage to apply and to think how you can, to the research methods and help expand in IIASA. So that should really not discourage you from applying. And if anyone wants to talk with her, she's very happy to, to help and to talk with prospective applicants about this part.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I was supervisor, mentor, but and she did really interesting survey work in Taiwan and a few other locations. So yeah, she was doing causal loop diagrams of people's understanding of the COVID situation, right? So it was really a combination of different methods that she was using in that nice project. So somebody is asking about expectations for the publication. So what we're terming as a YSSP report is kind of the main deliverable that you have, and that's expected to be delivered by the end of September. So this idea that you have one more month to get that can take the form of a preprint of a manuscript if it's mature enough to be that. It could be a summary report of what you've done during the summer. So they really vary in their level of development and maturity. But the idea is that you have something that is documenting what you've done during the summer, right? So you're presumably getting a grant to do this, and this is the expected deliverable. So really nobody has a paper ready to send off to a journal at the end of September. That's fine. It's going to take some time, but that's your aim is ultimately, even if it's 2 years later or 5 years later, or maybe in Gemma's case next year, we'll be able to announce that we have her YSSP report published. I'm going to keep bugging you about that. And so yeah, and literally sometimes it's 8 years later that we hear from somebody, hey, I got my YSSP report published, and wonderful, right? So we put it in the database and mark it as a YSSP report. So yeah, and somebody's asked about the recording. I know the recording will be online afterwards. Somebody, I think I missed one about what stands out on your application, highlight in the proposal. I mean, it's really finding the fit, right? Finding somebody at IIASA that wants to be your mentor. And so that's why both Taha and Gemma mentioned if you know somebody or can reach out to somebody, then that goes a long way, because ultimately it's that relationship that you have with the mentor is the one committing the 3 months. And we do it just because we love mentoring students. It's really that simple. And so if the project fits, then somebody's going to take that on. All right, I see I'm behind in the questions. There's a lot coming in. Experimental research. We do not have any experimental research facilities, labs, benchtops, anything like that. So you don't expect to come to us and do that. If you already have data that you've done from someplace else and you want to bring that data and do some modeling work, then yes, that of course is within the kind of things that we do, and that does, some YSSPers take that route, but again, be sure that it fits into the kinds of questions and expertise that we have. So how much impact is on selection for prior sorry, Kirsten, go ahead. You wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to say, in the interest of time, maybe I could briefly just outline the application process, as we have some questions coming in terms of the deadline and how this will all unfold. If that's all right with you, I would just briefly...
Let me just try to catch up on the questions real quick. I'll try to be brief with them, but just so that they're all answered. yeah, experimental research, impact on selections of publications. So it is a competitive process. As I mentioned, we take 50 participants every year out of several hundred applications. So obviously having a stronger record could be a deciding factor in the selection. So that's something we look at. I can't say you need to have a certain number of publications because it's not that cut and dry. But yeah, who's the person that did the, yeah, Mayra, thank you for answering that one already. Yeah, so the health questions that just look online to see if maybe some research within the PopJust program deals with that, maybe the One Health that was already mentioned as well. So application timeline, Kirsten will get to that. Yeah, the deadline is the 13th. Wow, there are a lot of questions coming in now. Let's see. I think a lot of these will kind of answer themselves. The one about who you apply to. So you have a chance to select 2 research groups on your application, and they can be from different programs. So be a little bit strategic. Those are the ones who will first see your application. And so yeah, you definitely can apply to 2 and consider being mentored by people in multiple groups, as Taha mentioned that he had. So yeah, there we go. Taha answered that one. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so a lot of these questions are about questions I think you can just get from the website. So yeah, and thanks Taha and Gemma for also answering a lot of them. So yeah, so Kirsten, why don't you say a little bit more about the application process?
Sure. So first of all, hello again. My name is Kirsten Glenn. I'm a capacity development coordinator here at YASA in the team, helping to coordinate the YSSP and other summer school activities. Pleasure to meet you. I have just again shared the message I posted in the chat before. It contains all of the links to what I will be showing you now, so that you are prepared to find all of the information online. All right. I hope you can see my screen. Brian, can you confirm, please? Yeah, excellent.
Yes, I don't see it as
Oh, sorry,
full
I'm on
screen.
the, you don't see the full screen. It should be there, the website.
I'm seeing like half a screen.
Half a screen, interesting.
But there you go. There you go.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So this is our website. If you Google YASA YSSP application, you should land here on our YSSP page. People have been asking about the timeline. So the application period is already open currently. The deadline is the 13th of January of next year, 2025. Or 2025. And at the moment, this is now the time for you to go and read up on all of YASA's research programs and groups, and to kind of identify areas of interest where YASA and your research work together, where there are synergies or interesting aspects. Then again, as we had said, it would be good if you have the time to reach out to somebody at YASA itself. In terms of the prerequisites, as Brian had also mentioned, you need to be enrolled in a PhD program, ideally already advanced in your PhD. And here, I'm scrolling down, I hope you can see it. You can read up on all of the different areas of YASA's work. All of the research programs have already now developed a page, for example, here, YSSP opportunities in ECE, so in the Energy, Climate, and Environment program. You can read up on what they have to say, their research activities, what are they interested in, which research areas, and also there's contact information for you at the end, the different types of models being used. So please have a look online, familiarize yourself. And then when the time comes and you're ready to start your application, you can either click here to access the application portal or click on Apply Today, and it will take you to our application portal. So you'll have to register with an email address and a password, and then you go through all of the various pages and fill out the application form. We have a mock form available also for download so that you have an overview of what is required. You can find it down here. Let me show you. Point 1, this PDF form outlines the criteria to be fulfilled. So if you are interested, you can first open this document, have a look. basically, there are essential stipulations that you need to accept, such as YSSA does not have laboratories or fund field research, everything that we've already said. What is also new is we request you do not use any large language models such as ChatGPT to write your application. You should please write them yourself. We need your background information, information on your doctoral degree institution, preferred mailing address. Also important, when did you start your PhD, the date, and what is the expected completion date, so that the researchers and the selection panel can get an idea how far along are you in your PhD. We also require that you speak English. And when it says upload your CV and other supporting documents, we request you upload one PDF, so you can basically merge your CV with publication lists and any other relevant information you would like to share. Then in the portal, so this is only a screenshot, but once you apply in the system, here you will be able to select the 2 research groups that you want to be considered for, and the system will take note, and then you'll have to justify your program choice. So why do you think your research falls under this research program or group? And we'll also need the title of your proposed research, that is the research project you wish to conduct while at YSSA, the abstract, main research question and objectives, the methods and approach. And also, where are you getting your data from? And have you already obtained it? Are you in the process of doing so? As well as innovative aspects and expected results and risks. And then important, we also require that you name 2 references that will send a letter of recommendation to us. Please input the information and click submit. You do not need to have completed your application when you share the references with us. We just want to make sure that the references are alerted well before the deadline that they should provide a letter of recommendation for you so they can start preparing it. So once you input their information and you click submit, the references will receive an automatically generated email with the information that you have requested this letter and with a link for them to then go and upload the letter, just for you to know how the system works in the background. We also want to know, how did you learn about the YSSA program? Again, as Brian had mentioned, what is your funding situation? So are you able to explore alternative funding sources? If you say yes, please also name the funding avenues or sources that you will explore. It could be grants from your university or institution, other type of options. And if you say no, I would not be able to provide alternative funding. This is important information for us to see what we can come up with if you were to be selected. Last but not least, we also need your consent to process your personal data. And at the end, we just want you to double check all of the information you have submitted, and then you're already done. And you just submit your application and we will review it. And then in terms of the timeline, we will contact you by the end of mid-March, end of March, with the outcome of your application. And then if you are selected, you will be put in touch with the relevant colleagues in HR, etc. So in a nutshell, that is the outline. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Also in the message that I posted in the chat, you'll find the email address where you can reach us. And you can also email me if you want to receive the recording of this webinar, and it will be available at the earliest tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. Excellent. The point about the reference letters is important because the deadline for you is January 13th, and I think the deadline for the letters is just a few days after that. So don't wait until you submit to one day. Yeah, so
14th.
So reach out to the people ahead of time, and so they have some leeway to get that done. If you end up not submitting for whatever reason, let them know so that they don't have to, maybe, but you probably wouldn't know that till the end. Anything else in the last minute or so?
Sorry, just to again highlight and emphasize that after the 20th of December, YSSA will be closed for a 2-week holiday period. Nobody will be working. So it is important that you have established contact, if necessary, beforehand, as presumably nobody will be able to get in touch with you afterwards before the deadline approaches. So please keep that in mind.
Okay. So again, thank you, Gemma and Taha, for not only presenting, but answering all the questions in the chat. That was wonderful. There was one more that just showed up. How long will we get their response after contact mentors of IIASA? It's like anybody, you reach out to them, you don't know, maybe a few hours, maybe never, right? And so it really just depends on, maybe they're on travel, maybe they're doing whatever. So that's very individual to that. If you don't hear anything in a few days, then maybe try somebody else, maybe try one of the representatives from the program, which are listed on the website as well too. So anything else? All right, well, we're right on time, it looks like, and I have another meeting to jump to.
Brian, I just want to mention one thing to our Iranian colleagues. As Brian and they said, please make sure that your area, I mean, in Iran, we would like to have it, INSF requirement that your proposal will align with your PhD, and also try to have a good coordination with the mentors in order to provide a good proposal that can be effective and can be useful for your future.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Moshe. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks, Kirsten, for organizing this, and again to Gemma and Taha for sharing your experiences, and Taha for promoting the paper. Everyone should read Solutions Are Not the Answer. It's a short read. All right, take care, everybody. Hope to see you this summer. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good afternoon or evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.